Musk now says there's something more important than his grand plans to save free speech online. What could be more important than that? His money. The richest man in the world is worried about losing money, even though he literally has more of it than anyone. And that's why he's now gone soft, weak, hesitant, waffling on the deal he negotiated and touted with so much bravado, formally putting talks with his investors on ice, and throwing out excuses that he will need more internal data from Twitter to move forward. Of course, he already reached the deal to move forward. And when he did say that in public, well, it was rebutted by a company expert, and that factual rebuttal was too much for Musk. At a loss for words, he started posting poop emojis.
Elon Musk says he's putting his $44 billion deal to buy Twitter on hold until the company can back its estimate of how many bots are on the platform.
We saw CEO Parag Agrawal from Twitter kind of going back and forth with Elon today, trying to explain, hey, here's how we measure bots. And Elon replied with a poop emoji.
That's right. Every day, a new twist to the story, and it just might involve a poop emoji.
Ha, ha, ha. It's not even a little bit funny. And believe me, I know a thing or two about unfunny jokes. The emojis relate to something more important that I'm going to get into right now. They are just a blunt, dumber version of what he was doing before with the politics deflection going into the deal. Distract, deflect, emotionalize the issues, sabotage any sober public discussion or accountability. Gosh, it's almost like he's done stuff like this before. Now, putting a platform like Twitter under one person's control raises huge challenges about power over speech, democracy. The company's current shortcomings on free speech, which we've covered, would mostly be worsened by a monopoly. And as we've reported, they have current issues. Now, Musk tried to obscure that with this whole political free speech pitch on the way in. So this is more misdirection on the way out. Some experts say he's outright lying to bolt on the deal, finding a way to try to duck the billion-dollar fee that he himself recently agreed to if he exited. This is bigger than Twitter. This is what a certain brand of billionaire monopoly-style capitalism looks like. Believe the billionaire at your own peril. Remember, he expects the rules to control you, not him. And that's not fair, nor is it law and order or classically conservative if you want to get into the politics. In the billionaire model here, he operates on the premise that he's better than you, that he's smarter than you. He'll get away with it. That's what he thinks. So the conservatives who signed onto this agenda are finding themselves in a tough spot. They're not getting any of those political benefits Musk pledged and they naively believed. In fact, when we first aired a report making this exact point, some conservatives responded by insisting Musk would fix Twitter and he would restore Trump. Just wait. Just wait. Others falsely claimed that Musk's critics were concerned Musk would abuse Twitter's moderation powers and just flip it and target some other set of perceived opponents. And I don't mean this was just, people talking on Twitter. An editorial in Rupert Murdoch's conservative Wall Street Journal cited The Beat and claimed critics were hilariously wailing at Elon Musk and that the critics must oppose free speech. Because that guy smiling on your screen, he's not about money, he's about free speech, said the Journal, which is supposed to know about money. Well, that aged poorly. It was dumb then. Sorry, but it was. It's wrong now. What's actually hilarious is taking Musk at his word like the Journal did. Didn't work out. Or like all these right-wing Republicans and Twitter trolls did. Because they thought Musk would do what he said, that he had so much money he didn't have to worry about money, and he would use his money and power to help them, to help Trump get back on their platform in time for the next election. Well, to paraphrase Kendrick Lamar for the Republicans, you might look up to Elon, but he is not your savior. And now, over in other parts of the right wing, some of that blind cheering has turned into a kind of skepticism. So we're going to show you then and now with the evolution as Musk has shown his colors again.
For once, this isn't about power and money. Musk is doing it to save free speech.
He's all over the place.
He's all over the
things.
place.
I think some people are getting a little annoyed with him for these constant tweets which throw everybody into confusion.
The 5 people at this table all are fans of Elon Musk. I don't think that I overstate
all of us are.
that.
I am. I'm not giving Elon advice, but if I was, I wouldn't be talking about people's jobs and people's livelihoods via Twitter.
He's our Edison. This is our Thomas Edison. This is our Da Vinci of our generation.
Announcement that nearly 10% of the company's workforce would be laid off over a super bad feeling about the economy. Liz, what the heck is going on?
No need to criticize you if you are completely embarrassing yourself. So what is going on, as the Fox anchor asked? Billionaire's gonna billionaire. They're about profit. That's how they got to be billionaires. And in social media, there are also perverse profit incentives that have been documented. Google's former CEO, Eric Schmidt, recently told us about this in one of our series about business and tech here on The Beat. And notice what you're going to hear. He refers to the same duty to pursue profits that I mentioned, both in our original report and tonight, and talks about how that has just completely spiraled into manipulative outrage, which is why, at a core level, some of these sites, like Facebook and Twitter, distort our politics.
The issue with social media is roughly the following. Social media, these are businesses, and their job is to maximize shareholder return and revenue. And the best way to maximize revenue is to maximize engagement. And the best way to maximize engagement in social media is with outrage. Literally outrage on the left or the right.
Musk gets that. He's an effective businessman who uses Twitter already for outrage and trolling, and deflecting and distracting, as I showed, a lot of people who think they understand what's going on. And he's used his business skills and creativity to improve the transportation and auto markets and do some other very impactful things. None of these facts tonight take away from that record, but when it comes to shaping people's minds, let alone the discourse in our entire democracy, the facts matter. And Musk also, by the way, had some support for his deal beyond just the right wing, which I showed you earlier. That's important because we want to be accurate with you and show you why you may have heard, even from people who aren't right-wing Twitter obsessives, why this, they heard, was a good idea for tech or business. Twitter's own founder declared Musk was the best person to take over the company. Take that for what you will. But if you want to understand that, remember what I said about facts? Wouldn't you also want to know that without Musk's inflated offer price, which he's now trying to run from, that same founder I mentioned, Jack Dorsey, would stand to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. If the deal goes through, that founder, Dorsey, gets paid way more than Twitter is currently worth on the market, and more than it was worth on the market when the deal was first made. He would get about $978 million. Take that for what you will. When you see him talking and saying Musk is the only one who can do this, is he saying that with some disinterested, independent view? Or might he be affected by that other billion coming his way? If you forget everything else that I'm telling you tonight, remember, billionaire's gonna billionaire. Now, some versions of Musk's offer could still go through to get Twitter. They're all fighting that out. But there's a hard lesson here for the hard right. You're not above being used by a billionaire, even if you had that naive, privileged sense that you were, that he would be on your side for real. And that's just the recent history. The much wider lesson is even more important, and it goes way beyond politics. This is the most unequal time in the global economy in the history of the world. Tax policies, pro-corporate policies, and a lot of help from both parties in the United States have made that a big, enduring problem. So we got to deal with billionaires who can come in and forget complaining about the press. They could just buy it, or bankrupt it, or buy social media, and kick people off the platforms, which is something I mentioned in the first report. Because if companies do that the wrong way, they should be held accountable. And if one person does it in a monopoly, they should be held accountable, but that'll be harder. So be wary of billionaires claiming to be altruists. It's not really what they're known for, especially if they're claiming it in the middle of a business deal. And let's be clear about the difference in tone and mood, which, to be fair, some of the later critical coverage on Fox that I showed you did mention. because people's livelihoods and jobs are on the line. To the billionaire, this may feel like a game, a move, another clash with high stakes for everyone but themselves, kind of like another Succession plotline. Musk knows there's a $1 billion fee for bailing, but what's $1 billion to him? And he fully expects to use his money and power to duck part or all of that $1 billion fee, just like a former president is known for stiffing bills. And if you can get away with it, then they don't feel as much like bills. But most people don't get away with it. For everyone else, it's not a game, it's not a move, it's real life, real jobs. And if any of this at times has sounded technical or techie, believe me, we're not interested in the hardware here or the algorithm on its own. We're interested in how people with this much power use their power in ways that can affect you and our democracy. So here's a concrete, real example, offline, from Musk's history along the same lines. Did you know he once did a PR stunt where he was trying to push the sale of flamethrowers, delivering these rockets out to people? It drew outrage, it drew understandable safety concerns and pushback from none other than Joe Rogan.
Does anybody tell you no? What kind of unhinged people are going to be buying a flamethrower in the first place? Do we really want to connect ourselves to all these potential arsonists?
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. Terrible. Shouldn't buy one.
It's a terrible idea. You shouldn't buy one. Again, ha, ha, ha. But who's the joke on? Well, with the billionaire, most of the time, even if he says the opposite, it's on you.